great. Yeah, great.
So,
just Tom at Meedan. Hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We're just solving some technical issues up front here. This session is titled Video Verification, Journalist as Data Worker, I think, something like that. The session was actually pitched as a workshop, so I'm hoping that this is going to be a little bit of a conversation. I'm very happy to be joined by Mark Boas of Bad Idea Factory, a technologist who's worked on verification and transcription technologies with various groups over the years. My name is Tom Trewinard. I'm the Director of Programs at Meedan. We build open source technology for verification and annotation and analysis of claims and links and memes and video. So we've been working in the verification space since around 2011. And really what we wanted to do today is to talk a little bit about the kind of state of video verification. We have a bunch of tools that we'd love to show you, some of which we've worked on, some of which other people working in the space have developed. We want to sort of set a bit of a scene. Mark's going to present and talk a little bit about his work, and then I'd like to show a couple of the tools that tackle different aspects of video verification and video analysis. Hopefully that's stuff that is useful and new to you. If there's people in the room, I don't see Jochen here, but if there's people in the room who have other tools, I think it'd be great to kind of air those. I think there's a lot of really interesting technology that can support video verification, and this workshop is designed as a way to kind of share that with the people in the room. So after we've demoed a couple of things and talked a little bit, we're going to be opening up to questions and input and feedback. As you're looking at these tools, one thing, as technologists that work in the space, we'd love to hear from you about what your needs are. How can we, what are the things that we can be building moving forwards that can better help you do your verification work? And so with that, I'm now presenting. Somebody at the back turn on the... Mark is going to introduce a little bit of his work on this space. All right.
Put the power in, so...
Here you go. I think you're mine.
Oh.
Is this one? This one? Yeah, it's mine.
Okay, is it? Okay, this is great. Fine, I don't have to worry about the power then. Thanks, Tom. As Tom mentioned, my name's Mark Boas. I actually... I'm more of a developer than a journalist, but I work in the area of journalism as well. The kind of intersection between technology and media. Specifically, I work in the area of transcription. Machine transcription can be used for a number of things that we found useful. And I'm going to take you through. The idea of these slides is just to kind of inform people of what is possible using transcription, how we've used it in various applications, and how we're thinking of using it in the future. Hopefully it'll only take a few minutes. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but there will be time for questions afterwards. I work for a company called, or a loose group of people called Bad Idea Factory, and we work together with Meedan, as Tom said, and so some of these things will actually show some of the stuff that Meedan's done as well. The title of this talk is Verification Loves, or Verification...
Heart emoji.
Heart emoji. I had trouble saying it. Heart emoji transcription. And it's really about how we can use transcripts, machine-created transcripts, in a way that helps us verify video. So what we've noticed in the last few years is that speech-to-text algorithms are greatly improving. Things are getting much better. They're getting much more accurate. We can turn things around much more quickly, so it doesn't take as long to get back a transcript. We get extra bits and bobs, extra bits of metadata like diarization, which means we can split things into pieces where different people are speaking. And we also have this magical thing, which is word timings. and the cost is coming down. Now, the word timing, sorry for the excessive use of emojis. I think I might have gone too far, but word timings are one of the key things that we build upon. It might seem like a small thing. It's actually a byproduct of machine transcription. Once the algorithm detects a word and recognizes a word, it also knows when that word has been actually uttered. So that's always kind of been there in the background with machine transcription, and what we've tried to do is use that for various different applications. Now, with Meedan and Montage, we kind of use the timing so we can do text-based annotation and comments. Now, one good thing about text is that you can skim through it. And so if you have a video where people are speaking in it, it might take you a while to go through and grab all the content. Once you've transcribed that and you have a reasonable accuracy, you can go through that very quickly and skim through it and find things. Also, those word timers are quite accurate, so you can kind of use paradigms that you've used maybe with text. So if anyone's ever used Google Docs, you can collaborate on documents by selecting a piece of text and commenting on it. You can do the same thing with audio and video. And also we do this thing called interactive transcripts, which is just like a normal transcript, but it allows you to click on the actual words and navigate directly to that part. So it's a real useful aid to navigation. And then you can also clip pieces very simply. You don't need to be a specialist in any way. You can put the content first, select a piece of text, clip it or share it, create a playlist. And finally, you can do things like create automatic captions. So you can create subtitles for videos, which is very useful for videos maybe where the spoken word isn't that clear or it's in another language, and that sort of thing. So having this word timing has allowed us to do a lot of things. And this is actually an application we're working on that was originally developed by Jigsaw, I believe, and now we're taking it further. And this was how we were tagging things originally. And in the current version, you can kind of go through a timeline and select via time what's happening on the video. We want to take this further. And so this is just a sketch of where we're going with this. And it's the ability to kind of do the same things as you would on the timeline, but in a much more natural and intuitive way. So you can just highlight the text, make comments, annotate, do all those great things, but with the content first. Now, one of the things is that not all audio is spoken word. So you might have a variety of background noises, things happening on the video that isn't just somebody speaking. And in fact, in a lot of the content that we're looking at, there is not a huge amount of spoken word. So what do we do with those pieces of audio that aren't spoken word? And what we have figured out is a way of detecting when somebody is speaking or not, and in the places where they're not, we can actually graphically represent in a kind of text-like way using a special font the background noise, which means, for example, if somebody wanted to comment on a piece of video, as they do in Montage, and by the way, Montage is a tool for people to collaborate on YouTube videos mostly, verifying various things that are happening in different parts of the world. And by having the audio track there, we can then sort of make selections on it and be able to comment on it and sort of move forward in that way. So you can imagine that there's a video, and perhaps there's gunshots happening, there's explosions, or maybe there's a helicopter or something like that. So it's also useful to be able to comment on things that aren't spoken word. So at the bottom of this slide, as you can see the representation of the non-spoken word, which is kind of in a kind of a wave form, but because we've used the font to represent it, or text in a way, you can select it in just the same way as you would select the text. Another great part of, I'm not sure what happened there at the bottom, of using text is it's very easy then to translate, or much easier to translate things in an automatic way. So if you have timings and you have the text, you can not only create subtitles and captions automatically, you can also translate those subtitles and captions to different languages, which means that people who maybe speak different languages, or videos that have various languages in, and maybe not the language you understand, can be translated quite quickly and commented upon in that way. There are APIs out there. People like Google do provide really good translation APIs, and when you've broken it down already into decent-sized sentences, that whole process becomes much easier. Another thing that I work on, and it's kind of a passion of mine and something that isn't directly linked to journalism, perhaps in this context, but certainly in ways of thinking about oral history and stuff like that and taking it into the classroom, is Hyperaudio. Once you have the word timings, you can start to manipulate video, create playlists, which can also be useful in a journalistic context, to make smaller clips of video, which can then be shared and commented upon. And crucially, you can always get a link back to the original video from there. So that's Hyperaudio. Another very important part of having things described as text, or the spoken word, is that you can search through it. You know, we're used to searching through text-based documents. We know how quick that is, how well that works. Now you can do that with audio and video, which is very, very powerful. You can imagine there's huge amounts of information out there. Sometimes you just want to locate things very quickly, and sometimes you want to correlate things quickly too. One product that we did, or one prototype that we did make with the aid of Knight Foundation funding is something called the Glorious Contextubot. Now, the Glorious Contextubot is actually an application that does not require a transcript to work. And what we do to make this work is a technique called audio-fingerprinting. Audio-fingerprinting allows you to identify a clip by the audio, and most video clips, of course, have audio in the background. So you can go to this website, contextubot.com, and try this out. It's still, I have to warn you, a prototype, and it's a concept that we're kind of proving, and it relies on having a trusted source. So the trusted source in question in this case is actually the Internet Archive. The Internet Archive, I'm not sure if many people are familiar with, but is an organization based in the US that archives a great portion of the internet. And one of the areas of data that it preserves is actually TV news. So you can imagine with the Contextubot, and our mission here was to allow people to search for a small clip that is often shared on social media and goes very easily viral, to find the context of that small clip and go back to the bigger clip, because miscontextualization, I think, is a big issue when it comes to verification of news and the spreading of misinformation. If you could quite easily search for put a small clip into this application and then find the bigger picture, we think that would be really useful. You can imagine even social media maybe having a little button that would allow you to do that automatically. And so as a prototype, we think this is great, and we hope to be able to take it further. So if anybody's interested in that, please come and talk to me. As I was speaking, audio fingerprinting allows you to identify the track, the video. But what we wanted to do as well is take it further and the mission was to make the big picture as interesting as a small picture, because people can often sit through 30 seconds, 20 seconds of a video and quite easily consume that. But when it comes to, here's the actual real video that it came from, that is a little bit more difficult to get people to sit down and watch. So one of the ideas was to have a caption storyboard that I'm not actually showing here, but an almost comic view, something that's more easily consumed. And to do that, again, we use the transcript that is included with many videos that the US, for example, produces through automatic captions. And so basically that's really it. I just wanted to make a brief introduction of how we can use automatic transcription in a way and help us verify news in different ways. And so
great, thanks, Mark. To kind of ground this in a sort of let's think about verification. I think when it comes to video, there's kind of two levels of challenge here. One is a kind of breaking news scenario where there's video that is extremely potentially valuable and useful for you in your reporting, and you need to verify very quickly. We'll look at some tools for that. Where I think this stuff comes into its own is looking at cases where we have a lot of video. So if you think, for example, of Syria, for any kind of given number of incidents or moments in the conflict, there's a vast amount of video, all of which needs some layer of verification, some ability to corroborate. And so if, for example, you can think about claims of a chemical weapons strike in one town, there'll be videos that show that show the kind of moment of impact. And there'll also be videos that show people talking about witnessing this stuff. And one of the first challenges that we see, that we have been observing basically since 2011, is that translation and transcription is one of the first challenges that you come up to when you're trying to incorporate those kind of videos in your work. Those videos can be very useful because they can corroborate and give a kind of human perspective on the video, on the other imagery that might show the moment of impact, for example. And so what I wanted to do is quickly show you some kind of a couple of real-world examples. So this is Montage live, and this is part of some research I was doing about a certain part of Syria with certain kinds of incidents. And so what Montage lets you do is build data sets of videos that are relevant to your story. So it has a very advanced YouTube search functionality that lets me search for a given region. So I'm going to search for this region, and I know that the incident I'm looking for happened between a certain date between, let's say, March 1st and April 2nd, so I can refine this. If you try searching for videos on YouTube, you'll find it's quite frustrating. I don't know if anybody's had that experience, because you can see things from the past 24 hours or the past month or the past year, but if you know that there's an incident that's happened that you're looking for, you want to be able to say, we just want to look at things between this date and this date. So Montage lets you do that. It also lets you search by location. Some videos uploaded to YouTube have location metadata, others don't. At the moment, one limitation of Montage, and this is kind of a consequence of its being born of Jigsaw, which is a branch of Google, is that it only works on YouTube. One of the things that we're looking to do now is expand that to other video platforms. I think my internet connection is not working here. Once we've found those videos, Montage lets you very quickly create a collection. So here's a collection of videos that I think are relevant to the story that I've been working on. And what I can then start to do is dive into these and start to assign geolocation tags, time-stamped tagging. Never do live demos because the internet doesn't always work. Let's try here. So Montage is a platform basically that lets, it's not offering some kind of machine analysis, it's not a kind of truth bot for video, but what it does allow you to do is to work within your team or individually to kind of bring all of the video content that you're working into one place and start to add data and information about that can add context and hopefully can help with the verification process. Okay. This is Montage. Is a tool for collaboration around curation and annotation. Another tool that's also kind of emergent at the moment is a tool called VFrame. It's an open source machine vision framework. And again, this is dealing with the problem of having so many videos that you don't really know what to look at. And so this is a prototype that was developed basically with the goal of helping a human rights research organization who's collecting a lot of video prioritize which videos they're analyzing and verifying. And so what VFrame lets you do is say, I want to look for all the videos that contain this particular object. Now, this is a cluster munition. It's an illegal weapon to use in conflict. And so for groups like Syrian Archive, what they want to do is they have, I think, over 3 million videos. Some of those are not going to be relevant to human rights research. Some of them are going to be extremely relevant to human rights research. And so they need a way to analyze these videos at large scale and focus in on the videos that are most relevant to their work. So what you can see here is VFrame identifying all of the different cluster munitions in a given video. And so you can imagine that there's lots of different ways that we can apply this once you can start to detect different kinds of objects. And so the kind of end goal here is that you might want to look for videos that contain a certain logo or videos that contain a certain building. And this would be one way of digging into a kind of big data set to look at, to find just what you're looking for. Do check out the prototype when you have a better internet connection than I have right now. Another application of this is that VFrame can analyze videos and provide a content-based scene summary. So again, this is a way of refining, kind of filtering out the noise from big data sets of videos to just focus in on the kinds of content that are relevant to your investigation and the kind of content that's that you're looking for. And so this is stuff that's really useful for kind of investigative reporting, especially if you're looking at incidents with lots of video. I think moving forward, we know that the cost of data is going down, the cost of smartphones is going down. We should be anticipating that we're going to see more and more and more videos. Syria is kind of the first case where we have a conflict that I think it's Witness did research that shows there's more hours of video of the conflict of Syria on YouTube than hours of the conflict itself. And so that should be a major kind of flag for us. And you know, when these incidents and conflicts break out in different parts of the world, we should anticipate that there's going to be a lot of video that's extremely relevant for us as journalists or activists or human rights researchers that we're going to want to bring into our work. So these are some emergent tools for this. On the kind of the other end of the scale, there might be times when there's a breaking story, you want to do quick analysis of a video. I wanted to show, and Jochen has arrived now, I'm happy to see. I wanted to show InVid, which is a really a kind of unique toolkit for analysis of video and other things. It's a Chrome plugin and lets you do various different kinds of analysis on videos. So again, one thing, so here's the video that we want to analyze. There's not that much useful information here. We don't know, we know it was published on the 10th of April, but we don't know when, what time. In a breaking news scenario, that's extremely important because you don't want to be dealing with the scrape of a video. You need to know that this video was uploaded after the incident that it claims to show, right? So that exact time is extremely important. And so what InVid lets you do is query the YouTube data API for a given video and get back a lot of very useful contextual information. So here we can see the exact time of upload. So this is already, and all we've done here is paste in the link and hit submit, and we're getting instant results here. So we can see information about the content itself. We can also see some information about the source, so the channel. I gave an example this morning of the Assyria Hero Boy video. I don't know if people have seen that. It was a staged video that was uploaded to a newly created account. So here, which is a red flag. The video itself was very difficult to verify or debunk because it was extremely well produced. But if you analyze the source, you'd see that the account was only made a few days before the video was uploaded, and it hadn't uploaded any other content. So it's extremely unlikely that a newly created Syrian channel would upload as its first thing this video that shows something completely completely amazing. So all the time we're looking for these red flags, and tools like InVid can give you a lot of contextual information that can guide you through that. Down here we can also see one of the huge challenges in video verification is that if we have an image that's shared on Twitter and we want to see if it's existed online before, that's very easy. There's Google Reverse Image Search, TinEye, Yandex, lots of services that we can send an image to. It will check against a database, and it will tell us if that image has existed online before the incident it claims to show. Now, we don't have that for video, and so this has been a kind of ongoing frustration, I think, in the verification community. And so what InVid lets you do is basically hack a reverse image search as a proxy for reverse video search. So we can take frames from a video, see if those frames themselves exist in reverse image search databases to see if we can find earlier versions of videos. So this is all with the goal of answering the question, is this the original video? Are we working with the original video, or are we working with a scraped video, or are we looking at a video that actually has been uploaded somewhere many years ago and is not relevant to the situation that we're working on? And you can see here that we have Google Reverse Image Search, Yandex Reverse Image Search. Yandex Reverse Image Search has gotten really good lately. I don't know what they've been doing, but for a while, TinEye and Google were the main engines. Yandex is now showing some really strong results. We can also do, this is probably the best Twitter search tool that's around because it lets you search very specifically. So this is outside of video verification, but we can do some really interesting analysis and basically discovery of video. So there's a couple of paths to verification, right? One is looking at the content itself and looking at the source. Another path is, can we find other videos from other angles or other sources that show the same thing? Can we find corroboration? So always kind of discovery and verification go hand in hand. This is an extremely powerful discovery tool that can help with the process of finding other videos that might show the same thing. There's also a metadata viewer and other tools that let you do more kind of analysis of the content and metadata that's available in images and video. So thank you, Jochen, to you and your team for developing this, and Dennis. I'm curious to know if just I want to kind of move into more conversation here. Who works with video verification as kind of part of their day-to-day work here? Because I'm really curious to figure out, like, what are the needs that you have? What are the challenges that you're facing when you have a video, you don't know if it's real or false? How can we, as kind of a technology community, better be helping meet your needs? And so I think there's a microphone. I don't know if anybody's willing to sort of put their hand up and say, this is a challenge I'm facing. Is there a way around it? Is there anybody who? I guess Perugia's more used to panels than workshops. The setup is not conducive to conversation.
Hi, my name is Jacob. I'm working for television in Austria. And one of the biggest challenges I faced when looking up a video, especially in breaking news, is finding the original source. So I can almost never be sure that that's the first one who uploaded it, or is it scraped from somewhere else? And also, that's important because I need to clear the rights, and I can only clear the rights with the original uploader, who is the copyright owner. So I don't think there is an easy solution for that, but that's one of the main challenges I'm dealing with.
And how do you, so there's probably people who aren't familiar with how you would go about that. What are the steps that you take right now to try and assess that original, is this an original piece of content or?
Well, contacting the people is the most promising thing, and asking them questions. And if they can come up with answers that make sense, that's the best indicator that they are the original uploader.
What would the question? What kind of questions would you be asking?
What were you doing there? Which camera were you using? Yeah, stuff like that.
Great. So one point on this. The asking the uploader. When images and video are uploaded to social networks like Twitter or WhatsApp or Facebook, there's a certain layer of metadata that is stripped out of that. And so usually, how many people here are familiar with EXIF data, EXIF metadata? Yeah. Can somebody quickly, I'm going to call on you here. Can you just quickly give us a brief on what EXIF metadata is? Microphone.
All the technical stuff behind the production video or an image.
Right. So EXIF data, whenever you take a photo or video, your device attaches metadata to that image or video. Well, I'm still in Arabic here. And that metadata pertains to things like what device was the image taken on. If it's a phone, it can be things like location. I'm going to find an example here for you all. This is actually one of my favorite examples of EXIF data, because it's what happens when it goes wrong. Does anybody know this story? The guy on the right here is John McAfee of McAfee Virus Scans. He's kind of an eccentric technologist. In, I think it was 2014, 2015, he was implicated in some case involving a murder of his neighbor in Belize, and he went on the run. He disappeared. The police couldn't find him. Vice managed to track him down, and he agreed to do an interview for Vice. And Robert King put up this story on Vice website saying, with the typical Vice kind of snarky tone, saying, "Haha, we found John McAfee. Where we got him. We got the exclusive interview." And he put up this photo. But what he didn't do is strip out the EXIF metadata. And so this was a photo he had taken on his phone. And so here you can see that it's an Apple iPhone 4S. You can see exactly when he took it. But crucially, you can see that the coordinates of where this photo was taken. And so these coordinates, they're not general. They're extremely specific. And so using these coordinates and using that time, it was very easy to track down where he was, and then he got picked up by the police a few days later. So it's very important that journalists are aware of EXIF data, because in this case, Vice blew their source. But to get back to the point here, for this reason, a lot of all EXIF data is stripped out of images that are shared on Facebook and on Twitter and on WhatsApp. If you can get hold of the original uploader and ask them to send you the original file, you will be able to view this. And so even just running any file that somebody would send you through one of these, you'd be able to know if it's original, because there would be a presence of metadata. If it's not, if they send you a file and say this is the original, but there's no EXIF metadata attached, then that should be a red flag. The other thing that you can do is ask questions. Usually people aren't aware that this metadata is created, and so you can ask questions like, what phone did you take this on? And if Robert King said he took it on a Samsung Galaxy, we'd know that there's another red flag here. So there's lots of information here that's really useful, that's only available if you can get the original file, and that's true for video and images. So great. if you can get the original, then you can figure out more information. What about? I'm curious. Have people here worked on kind of the more investigative use of video in their reporting, and what challenges have you faced? Usually it's the audience asking me questions, but I'm bouncing this back. This is the workshop.
I mean, I would say, Tom, with that first question, it depends if something has already aired on the news as well. Tools like Contextubot could help you locate when it was first aired. And at that point, you might be able to contact the person to help verify it. That's kind of a side point, but that technology does exist.
I have a good example, because we were talking about Contextubot on an earlier panel. We worked on a project called Verificado in Mexico last year, and one of the first things that we debunked was this video that showed one of the presidential candidates. Basically, he was repeating Trump talking points, like, we're going to build the wall and we're going to kick the Mexicans out. And so in the full video, you get the complete context, and you understand that he was saying that in repeating Trump, he was not indicating it himself. And so that's a case where the video had been manipulated to kind of make it look like he was saying these things as his own point of view.
Start by sharing a few thoughts, a few facts about Mexico. When Mexico sends its people, it is not sending we're sending people that have lots of problems. And that they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. Let me start by sharing a few thoughts, a few facts about Mexico. Mexico is a country with 3,000 years of history. Mexico has a rich culture and very friendly people. It has been said that when Mexico sends its people, it is not sending the best. It's been said that we're sending people that have lots of problems, and that they're bringing those problems here, that they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. That's absolutely false.
So you can see how it's very easy to, take cuts of a video, make it look like something is out of context. Tools like Contextubot can help you add that context that's been stripped out back in, because it will show you that he was not saying Mexicans are rapists as a phrase in and of itself. He was repeating what somebody else was saying. So we had a point here. Hi.
Yeah, hi. I'm Anna. I'm a freelance journalist from Finland. And, well, I'm very new to the whole verification, I have to say, but I would still be interested, since I sometimes research or investigate networks, if there is any chance, like with one of the tools, to see where a video first appeared, or to see how it spread, because this is also sometimes very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's...
Is that TV news networks or just general?
On social media?
More social media.
So one tool developed by Henk van Es, who's kind of like the godfather of verification. He's an amazing researcher. He does a lot of work with Bellingcat. Is this tool Who Posted What? It looks specifically at Facebook and to try and find who posted a given link or a given phrase first. So this is one thing you can try. But I think that does speak to some limitations. And so one of the things that I'm kind of interested in is where are those limitations in your work, and how can we kind of advocate if there's something that the platforms can be helping us do? What are those things? If there's stuff that technologists like Bad Idea Factory or Meedan can build, what are those things? In terms of network, seeing who shared that first, I'd suggest using tools like BuzzSumo and others that let you kind of, I think CrowdTangle has a feature that can do this too, or there's a tool called Spike by Newswhip that can let you see for a given piece of content when it was posted first, but also who's shared it and what the consequences of that sharing are. So you can kind of see the inflection points of when something goes viral, and that's really useful for us, the people who work in kind of the misinformation space, because it better helps us understand the dynamics of. Kind of less importantly, who's posting it first, but who are the vectors that are making this stuff really go viral. And so, yeah, Spike is a good tool for that. I think CrowdTangle has some functionality around that too. Yeah. Any other challenges with video verification? No? Or any questions for myself and Mark? We'll go here first.
Yes, hello. I'm Isabel. I'm also a freelance journalist and also very new to the whole video verification. So a quite naive question that comes to my mind now is, once you have found out that something is wrong, so what do you do next? Do you try to contact the person who posted this thing? Is it possible to locate somebody, or maybe it's even uploaded from whatever or whoever?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what story you're working on, right? So if you're covering a breaking story, then knowing something's false, you can leave it, and in that sense, verification is kind of a protective measure, because you don't want to be the newsroom who takes that false video and publishes it, right? So that's, in that case, you don't need to follow up with the source if you can debunk it through using some of these tools that can help analysis, or by finding earlier versions of the tool. In that case, you don't need to go to the next step. If you're more interested in the kind of investigative angle of kind of who is behind it, then you can kind of move from the content verification to looking at sources, and there's lots of techniques that you can use to investigate sources. The kind of initial step that I would always take is to reverse image search a profile picture, because one of the risks is that bots and sock puppet accounts, they use other people's images, and so if you suspect, for example, that the video you're seeing is being shared by a bot, you can start to investigate that through reverse image search the profile. You can look on Twitter, for example, is always useful to look when you're looking at a source to see who's the first account that this user followed, and who is the first account that followed this user, because typically bots and sock puppets follow one another, and so if you kind of it takes a lot of time to do network analysis of that kind of stuff, but as quick indicators that you can take, just look and see who's the first person this account followed. Again, it's always useful to try and find, if you find something on Twitter, for example, that's posted by a given user, try and find that user's other social accounts. So see if they use the same username on Instagram, the same username on Facebook, for example, and try and build a kind of bigger picture of the source. And so I think that speaks to one thing my colleague Fergus Bell asked me to mention is that tools for verification are great, but we always have to be thinking of kind of process. There's not a tool that can solve verification for you. It's always going to be a process. Tools change, and the features of technology platforms change all the time. For us, we just have to translate what we would be doing regularly as journalistic process into this kind of digital space. And so as much as you're asking questions about the content of a video, and there's analysis that you can do looking at shadows, for example, that might be useful, or analysis of any landmarks. One of the ways that we verified a lot of videos in Syria and geolocated them to specific times is by looking at any even small fragments of like a mosque that's visible. Then we can go and find other images of that mosque, and we can look at Google Earth satellites, which has a lot of imagery that we can use to say, okay, this mosque is visible here, so the cameraman must have been standing here. And then from there, you can do things like analyzing the shadows to understand what time of day the video was taken. I'd really encourage, I'm really happy that the New York Times has been investing in their video unit. It's led by Maliki Brown, and they've done a lot of really incredible work to explain how the video verification process works, and also to sort of highlight to the audience what's going on when they're doing this analysis. They won an Emmy last year for their work on the Las Vegas shooting, which is a really powerful example. Maybe I can quickly show here. This was a case. So you're probably, this is the one. This was a shooting in Las Vegas. There was a country and Western concert happening at the street level. Somebody was firing down into the crowd. So there was lots of video because people are at the concert, right? So there's lots of video and there's lots of audio. And what the New York Times did is to kind of piece together all of that. So they used many, many different sources to kind of analyze minute by minute as shots were being fired, what was going on. Because there was lots of claims of multiple shooters, there was lots of claims around what was happening. And this is kind of the gold standard of how to incorporate all of that video into your journalistic work, where they've analyzed sources, they've matched up the timestamps, and they build a very engaging visual experience for the audience that explains all of that verification work.
Unfolded on a scale that has confounded the public and investigators too. The amateur and police footage of that night is horrifying. But by forensically analysing these clips, we are able to draw perhaps the most complete picture to date of what happened. We lined up the sound of gunfire in different videos, and using the hour, minute and second these clips were recorded, we mapped over 30 videos on a timeline covering the entire event. More evidence will emerge, and this is not the definitive picture, but this reconstruction puts you, the viewer, at the concert. We show what it must have felt like to be caught in a rampage, not knowing where to run, or when the next round of bullets would come.
So I don't want to show it because it can be somewhat traumatic to actually go through this, but if you're interested in seeing how this works, this is a really amazing explainer of that if you can get really good at video verification and these levels of analysis, the kind of work that you can produce is really unique. And happily, there's not that many people doing this, so there's a lot of space for innovation and kind of creativity in incorporating these techniques. I think we have time for a couple more questions here. 5 minutes, okay. At the back, hi.
Hi, my name is Gemma from the Netherlands. I always find it very difficult to kind of read photo forensics to figure out whether it's manipulated or not, but I'm not sure if I know Invid has this section as well, but if it turns red, sometimes it's manipulated, but other times not.
Yeah, so the question is around photo forensics. And so this is, there's a couple of tools that you can use that will let you sort of forensically analyze. I wonder if the word forensic is maybe slightly misused here, but tools like this. And so what we can do here is run some analysis, for example, clone detection. This will detect the areas in this photo where there's been clones. So here, one of the things in Photoshop you can do to hide certain things or show certain things is take one piece of the image, clone it, and make it appear somewhere else. So here you can see this cloud is exactly the same as this cloud. It's the same cloud, and somebody's taken it and pasted it, right? So this is useful. There's other things like error level analysis, which basically shows or aims to show composite images. So here you can see that this thing has been added. It was not in the original photo. Now, but what I think your point is, there's a big limitation here, which again comes from this the way that the platforms themselves strip out a lot of data. So if I take this same photo, post it on Twitter, download it again, and try and put it through this tool, it's not going to work. I'm not going to get a good analysis. So these forensics tools are really useful if you have the original image, and they're much less useful if you're working with a downloaded copy from a social network. Last one.
Hello.
Hi.
If I get a video on WhatsApp, I don't know who made it. I know it's just going around. It shows something big, something that will be useful for my newsroom. But I know nothing more apart from contacting the sources that could verify or not. For example, police or I don't know. Firefighters or whoever. What else can I do technically? Because you said that those platforms actually wipes out any metadata.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be metadata on a video through WhatsApp. So you have to take a more kind of rugged approach. One of the things that we do for that is to and this is kind of very crude in a sense, but you can take still frames from that video and run them through reverse image search engines, which you can also...
In InVid? No.
You would do it through Google Images, basically. So you take a little screenshot of that thing, run it through the reverse image search engine. You can narrow that down using what's called a site-specific search and say, I want to look for this thumbnail only on youtube.com or facebook.com. So basically, you're trying to find the earliest version of that video that you've got, right? Maybe it doesn't exist, and so it might be you might not be able to find that stuff. And then the other, the thing that you can always do with video, or almost always do, is do like a very, very detailed analysis of the content itself. And so if, almost always when you get sent a video, it will say, this is showing this here, right? And so one of the questions that we have to ask is does this really show here? And so there's a lot of resources available that can explain how to do geolocation using any visual elements like street signs, car number plates, even things like trees, or Bellingcat has a great example where the image here, you'd think that it would be extremely difficult to geolocate. But basically, so here's the basically what they do is do an extremely detailed analysis and look at tiny details. So this is the image, basically shows a missile launcher on a road in countryside. Extremely difficult to say precisely this is here, but what they do is look at details like things on the road here that you can cross-reference with Google Street View, for example. Or you can see here actually there's a tiny fragment of like a sign on the side of the road that you can also see on Google Street View. And so what you can start to do, and this might take a while and it depends on your capacity, but you can start to look for all of these little clues that can help you. And maybe you can't say with full certainty that this shows here, but you can say this, and this all points to this location. And so a lot of the work in geolocation is using the visual clues that are available in the content itself. So here's this is visible here. And so you can start to say this is visible here. Now these things, if you look at the original image, you wouldn't even really notice it, right, just by looking at it. You have to go very specifically into certain things to look at that. But I think I really enjoy this kind of work, and I think it's kind of, it sort of feels very investigative and fun, and there's lots of ways you can practice this and improve. Great, I think that's time. Thank you, everybody, so much. If anybody has any other questions or wants more information about this, I'll be just outside here for a few minutes, and I can share resources and tools. Great.
Thank you. We kindly ask